Hi guys, and welcome to my Salesforce consultant channel, in which I look to document some of the day-to-day challenges on the Salesforce platform based on real life requests I'm asked by clients. And this week I was asked by a client to give a couple of new users access to a particular custom object. The object was one that they used to track whether contacts had given them permission to use any of their media, photographs, etc. on their social media feed. That's a very, very simple custom object. So I had a bit of a challenge with that. I'm going to demonstrate that here. So I've got a development org in front of me. I've got my user with just a standard user profile, and there's an object in the system called test object, and I'm just going to go and actually search for that. And as you can see, I get no results when looking for the object called test object. So I've got no access to that object whatsoever. And that was the challenge I had, was when I set up the two new users with a standard profile, they couldn't see this particular object that tracked the media consent. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. Now, just to prove that it actually exists, I've just logged into the same org, but as the admin, and we've got our object here called test object. So very, very basic object just for the purpose of demonstration. So I can see that. Now, the normal course of action is to look at a couple of things. First of all, what is the org-wide defaults? And in that particular case, it was that they had public access to the object, but on a read-only basis. So that was fine. The user should have been able to see that object. But when I was logging in as them, I couldn't actually see the object at all. Now, that's also another interesting tip, real hot tip really for administrators, is to ask Salesforce to allow the admin to log in as users. It doesn't come as standard on Salesforce, but you have to raise a case and ask them to do it. But it's really, really useful, particularly when you're dealing with lots of users and they've got problems with logins, etc. And you can go before once you fix something for them, you can go and check it logging in as them and know that you're satisfied their requirement before you give a resolution. So that's a really hot tip from me. So I would go and log in, look at that first of all and see if that works, and that didn't work. So then I would then think about, well, let's just go and check on the profile. So I went and checked on the profile, and the profile certainly allowed access to that particular custom object as a read. I think it also allowed them edit as well. So it allowed read and edit. So again, the user should have been able to actually see the object, and that actually didn't happen. The last thing then I would tend to look at is something like field level security. So if all the fields on the object were subject to field level security and were not visible to that particular profile, that would also stop them seeing the object. And that wasn't the case. The system administrator had the same settings for field level security as the standard user. So that should have worked as well. So then I was really starting to scratch my head. I tried all the normal courses of why they couldn't see this particular object. I flicked the user over to system administrator profile just to belt and braces, and they could see the object. So I knew then that it's absolutely driven by something to do with the profile, but there was nothing absolutely obvious on the profile. And I was about to kind of give up. And then I thought, well, I'll just go and check one other thing. So the one thing I went to check is I went into the setup and I thought, let's just go and check the object settings. So I went into the setup area and went into object. And let's just look at the object manager and search for the custom object in question, test object, and open up the object. And then it was obviously blindingly obvious to me. When the object had been set up, it had been set up as deployment status of in development. Now, when you set anything up in the back end of Salesforce, custom report type being one, objects being another, and you leave it as in development, then it can only be seen by system administrators and nobody else, no matter what. And of course, when I changed that from system development to deployed, so you would do that just by going into the edit box and scrolling down here into the deployment section. Then of course, magically it appeared. The users could then see the object. We could carry on. And I thought that would just be a kind of an interesting one for system administrators to think about, and certainly for me to learn to go and check that first. So when I'm checking maybe org-wide settings, just go and check how the object was set up. It seems to me what happened here is an earlier administrator had set up an object, maybe kind of just testing things out. Now the people who are having access to it were fairly senior anyway because of the sensitivity of the data, and they had a system administrator profile, and therefore they were unaware of that as a problem. They could see it, the other people couldn't see it. So I thought it was kind of an interesting one to share. If you found that useful, if you could like the video down below, that would be really great. Even better if you could subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate that. In between time, enjoy Salesforce.